Welcome to what I hope will evolve into a sort of devlog series to document my learning progress as I attempt to make one small game each month using Unreal Engine's free for the month assets. Kind of my own personal monthly game jam, I guess. Now, the keyword there was attempt, as I don't actually have much experience making games, but I figured this would be a good way to learn. Anyway, let's get into it. So, the rules of the challenge are I must use at least one of Epic's free for the month assets. Bonus points if I can integrate more of them together meaningfully. There's not much use just throwing stuff in there for no reason. We're here to learn, right? Spend up to 1 week, less than 60 hours of effort for the whole month. The reasons for this are to keep the scope small, but give myself time to actually go through each asset, read the documentation, and figure out what I can get done. Also, I have other projects I want to work on. This just serves as a mental break while being able to learn about concepts that I might need in the future. Not to mention, I need to make time for all the real life, day job, boring stuff first. Make a video reviewing the assets and what was learned. And it would probably be nice to the asset developers to leave them a review on the marketplace while I'm at it. Let's take a look at what we've got this month. Instead of form component, interesting. Obviously, we could do a racing game or maybe something like the Burnout series where we need to cause destruction. Wild West City. We've got a whole city of assets here. This might be a good option for our level, but I don't think cars are going to fit on those bridges. Next, we've got a point and click adventure toolkit. So yeah, if this is a whole toolkit, that might actually be the best chance to get something done here. Basically 5 stars from 39 reviews. There should definitely be a bunch of stuff we can use as a reference here to learn from. So a point and click car destruction game? Maybe it's like that mini game in Street Fighter where you have to beat up a car for no reason. Anyway, a turn-based RPG template. 5 stars, but only 13 reviews. It says template, which makes me wonder how much there really is in here. That thumbnail reminds me of One Step from Eden, or those kind of Mega Man Battle Network mobile games. Maybe we can combine it with a point and click pack to have some combat. And for the permanently free collection, we have Vehicle Variety Pack Volume 2. Okay, that just seems like they had to throw that in there to go with the car damage plugin. So that was a quick recap of the assets we got this month. What I'm thinking is to take 3 of these, Wild West City, Point and Click Toolkit, and Turn-Based RPG, and see if we can't make a Wild West point and click and fight game. Alright, see you on the other side. And things did not go as expected. You can see what I managed to get done in the background here, but before I go through all that, let me do a quick review of the assets. First off, Wild West City. You can see I had fun with the post-processing settings, but I haven't actually changed much from the example scene. Why is that? Well, if we take a look at these assets here, actually, let's look at the showcase map. You can see here that half the buildings are on their own and the other half are a combined mesh with the stilts. Why not have all of them separated so it would be that much more modular? Now, maybe this pack is really just designed so that you can have these off in the background of your level, but really, where are you going to get other assets that match this style? Oh, and they have these little dangly bits on them that should have been separate pieces too. I think the way these meshes are set up, you're really not getting much use out of this pack. There's just not enough here to build an interesting city out of, at least for my limited mental ability. The other thing is, none of these buildings have an interior, which is fine, but we don't get any assets from which we could cobble together a believable interior space either. But the one thing that really annoyed me was the church windows. All the other windows on all the other buildings are blacked out, but this arch at the top isn't. And the scale isn't quite big enough for it to be an actual play area either. To be fair, I don't think this was a big issue for a point and click style game, since the developer can control what the character is doing at any given time. Just be aware of that if you're trying to use this pack as more than just background filler. I don't think I would ever use this in a project, but most of the textures are 4K, and I guess if you wanted to export the assets to Blender and make them more modular, you could. As for the RPG template, unfortunately I didn't have enough time to try to integrate this, which we'll get into why later, but when I did try it out, it was very convenient to just drop into the project, load the example level, and have everything just work. Poking around, it did seem very simplistic, and it definitely feels more like a Mega Man Battle Network template than a turn-based RPG template to me, but hey, maybe that doesn't sell as well. Though I feel like I'm starting to see a lot of those pop up recently, so maybe the author should think about changing the name. In any case, template definitely seems to be the right word to describe this asset. Though, again, I don't really see myself coming back to this in the future. Okay, finally, let's talk about the core asset that I use to put this game together, PNC Toolkit. This is a really high quality asset, at least in my opinion. If you are making a point and click adventure, you absolutely should grab this and get ready to hit the ground blazing fast. There's a fully featured dialogue system with conditionals, post-dialogue triggers, exact control of on-screen text positioning, support for audio dialogue. Of course, adding items and characters to interact with is also super simple. Absolutely a great choice. This might even be a good asset to pick up for someone opening up Unreal Engine for the first time. Now, if you'd like to hear me complain about how bad of a game developer I am, you can stick around. Or if not, you can just jump to the next chapter, which shows a full playthrough of my game, if you're interested. If you aren't interested in either of those things, thanks for watching, and maybe consider letting me know what I can do better with this whole YouTube thing in the comments. Okay, for the one person that's still here, I've got to tell you, I started this project out with a huge mistake, and it's just so stupid. I said I was going to take time to read the documentation, but I didn't. I made my project, imported the other assets I wanted to use, and then found out PNC needs to be created as its own project first. Now, I've had issues with renaming projects in the past and figured I'll just migrate the assets. What could go wrong, right? Everything, of course. Nothing worked. It was super frustrating, and I sat there with two editors open, going back and forth to see why it wasn't working in one and it was working in the other. If I had read the documentation or checked the asset library first, I would have known that I should have just used PNC as my project space to begin with. Instead, I wasted time setting the right class in project settings game instance, setting up the tags in project settings gameplay tag table, which requires that you restart the editor before any settings will be applied, set project settings default game mode correctly, export and re-import the input settings from the PNC project to my project, and set project settings software cursors to WBP advanced cursor. But the important thing is that I learned something, I guess. Read the documentation. The other thing that I wasted a lot of time on was metahumans. Instead of laser focusing on making the game, I let myself get sidetracked trying to get metahumans working for the first time. My computer also isn't that great, so there were multiple hours where I just couldn't do anything while the engine was compiling thousands of shaders. I only have a few hours each night after work to dedicate to this, so I really shot myself in the foot with that. The last thing that ate up a bunch of time was getting the nav mesh to generate properly so the player could move around the city. I've only ever used a nav mesh once before, and that was just teleporting around a VR test environment. For this, I needed the collision of the meshes from the Wild West pack to be suitable for generating a contiguous navigation mesh. And no matter what settings I tweaked, I just couldn't get a decent nav mesh to generate. So I went into each mesh in the asset pack, deleted the collision that was there, and added custom collision while watching how the nav mesh was being generated in the editor. All of this really limited the amount of time I had to put actual content into the game, but at the end of the day, it was absolutely a good learning experience. And while I was very, very frustrated at times trying to get systems I've never used working in such a limited amount of time, I really did learn a lot about what kind of issues I'll run into as I get further along in my game development journey. The worst part about all of this is that when I finally try to create the final build of my game, there's no input and no animations on the metahumans. So I won't be uploading this to my itch.io page, but I will show a full playthrough of what I managed to finish. Try not to cringe too hard. And that's pretty much it. So I did actually adapt the animation blueprint that comes with the pack to work with the metahuman. The animations do look pretty funny. I kind of like the way they look just because they look so bad. It always makes me laugh. I probably should have tried to make a driving game so I wouldn't get distracted by having characters to animate, but whatever. So, all in all, it was a good experience and a bit less stressful than a real game jam, a little bit. I'm looking forward to what Epic has in store for August and turning this into a self improvement routine. Also, feel free to join me and show off what you can do each month with the free asset packs. If I can do it, anyone can. If you have any suggestions or just want to tell me how awful I am, feel free to leave a comment, I guess.